hardly get lost.
Good.
Unless you're really gifted at it.
Is it afternoon? It is afternoon. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. Do this.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Marlon Baker. I was born and raised here in Decatur, Illinois. I grew up in an area just about 5-6 minutes down the road, which you'll hear more about that area later. I was an area stricken by poverty and violence. I did not grow up going to church, so this would have been quite uncomfortable for me and my family. Being in a room with pastors and ministers, I've probably been sweating a little bit. I was actually reached through a bus ministry from a local church in town who was committed to engaging their community. And so now I serve here on staff alongside Thomas and BJ, doing a little bit of the same, engaging in our community.
So I'm BJ, I'm the missions pastor here. I've been here for 12 years, and so I oversee our church's involvement, both here in our community through what we call community missions, and also oversee our church's involvement around the world in global missions. But today, we want to talk about community missions. But you need to know that FCC, First Christian Church, has not always been this engaged in our community. In fact, in 2004, we were asked the question, and you could say we kind of asked ourselves the question, if your church ceased to exist, would your community notice? It's kind of a challenging question. Well, instead of wimping out, we had to give the realistic answer. We had to be honest and say, if our church ceased to exist, other than our members and our attenders, probably our community wouldn't notice. We were pretty inward focused. We were pretty, you could say, kind of country club-esque, you know. And so out of that honest answer, no, we said, man, we want to do something. We want to get outside the four walls of our building. And so this question, and more so this answer, has completely transformed who we are as a church. So I know we've got Doug and Crystal and, John, a couple other people that were here pre-2004. FCC is a different place now than it was before we started engaging in our community. And so the first thing that it compelled us to do as a church was to walk across the street, way back 2004, walk across the street over here to Parsons Elementary. So if you're not from Decatur, most of you are not, Parsons Elementary is a Decatur public school, elementary school, and a majority of the kids who attend Parsons come from several pretty challenging neighborhoods in our community. You could say that they're low-income neighborhoods, at-risk, urban, inner-city neighborhoods. And so our couple staff members went across the road and knocked on the door and talked to the principal. I'm going to be honest and say she was really skeptical at first. She was like, you guys are from a church and you want to do something here in our building? Like, are you going to go around and hand out tracts or, have like a bullhorn in the parking lot? So she was pretty protective of the school for good reasons. And so the key is that when we first engaged over there, we went with open hands. We did not have an agenda. We weren't going to set up shop and have a revival service in the gymnasium. We weren't going to hand anything out. We weren't going to pressure anybody. We just said, we want to help. What can we do to help? And so she said, well, we've got some landscaping that needs to be done and kind of just some grunt work. And so Crystal was actually a part of organizing the very first serve day there. And, right, Crystal? Or yes or no?
No.
No. Okay. All right. I take that completely back. Scratch that from the video. Okay. All right. Here we go. Somebody at the church was a part of organizing the very first serve day there. And so literally what they did is they just went over there and they rake leaves and they just planted some flowers and kind of cleaned some stuff up. So basically it was on a Saturday. The principal was trying to keep us as far away from the students as possible. And so it started with that, and then it moved to, the school said, we really need a sound system. Ours is kind of junky. Could we borrow a sound system? So, we awkwardly loaded up a speaker and a sound system into a van and, tried to take it over there for the school to borrow. And over time of just coming in and saying, hey, how can we serve? How can we help? It's not our agenda, it's yours. We were able to begin to have volunteers in the school building, volunteering in classrooms, getting engaged. And while we were there, we noticed, man, there are just some really, really great students here, but they just need a little bit more encouragement. They need a little bit more attention. These aren't the lowest performing students, but these are students that, man, if they could just have a little bit of extra help in math or reading, just a little bit more encouragement, somebody maybe to sit with them and help them with their homework, they would do so much better. And so out of that, we started an after-school program called Club 305. And Club 305 happens here in our building every Tuesday and Thursday. And so we would have had it today, but you all kicked him out. Okay. Anyway, I was sorry, that was a low blow, but okay. So all that to say, sorry, man. Can we just record the next session? Okay. So anyway, all that to say, we started Club 305, and one of the cool things with Club 305 is that families come a couple times a year for what we call family night. And so families would come as an opportunity to meet the parents and siblings, and we're building these relationships, we're getting to know people. And then we began to ask some other dangerous questions. We asked the question, it's cool that the families are coming here to our building, and that's great, but what would it look like for us to go to where the families are from? It's cool that they come to us, but what would it look like for us to go to them? And so in 2003, we adopted a portion of the GM Square neighborhood, which is the neighborhood south of DMH Hospital, north of Grand Avenue, called The Block. And we've been involved in The Block ever since then.
Our focus in The Block was and continues to be relationships. Just a little bit of the progression of how things transpired in The Block. We met families, we learned about the neighborhood, we sensed the conviction from the Holy Spirit to get involved, looking for opportunities, casting the vision, which led to our commitment, which now is a house in The Block. I want to tell you a little bit about what happens at The Block house every single Wednesday, which is community table, and I wish I could just pack all of you into my Prius. So
it would be a tight fit. It's a small car.
It is a small car. So instead, what we'll do is we'll hop in BJ's van. And
my minivan, yeah.
Community table. Every single Wednesday night, families from the neighborhood and from the community meet and gather. We meet for a warm meal, which is by far my favorite part. I'll joke. We start off with a warm meal at 5:30, and then after that, we sit around the community table in BJ's dining room. There we share. We just ask, how's everybody doing? How's your day? How's work going? And we're able to kind of get a feel for what we can be praying for the needs of others. And so it's a safe place for people to share, to be heard, to be seen. And so in this group of people that show up at community table from the neighborhood, it's a diverse group. It's all over the place. You have people who are obviously pastors and who have been doing ministry for quite some time. And then you have people who, once we start the Bible study, are reading the verses from Scripture for the very first time. So you see a lot of light bulb moments, like, oh, this means that, this means that. And so it's a very diverse group, and the best way I can explain it is magic happens. And so as we take a look at that, I want to point out too, engaging our community has been transformational, both internally and externally. For those who have been reached, obviously for those who come to faith, and for those who hear about the love of Jesus for the first time. And it's also been transformational internally for us, for the church. It's been a catalyst for passion, for vitality, and for growth.
And so engaging in our community has, it has led to so many other opportunities. It's like once you open up those doors, you begin getting engaged, you learn about other needs. And so like we learned that quite a few students in the school district were not getting the back to school physicals that they needed. And so they were missing the deadline. Actually, a couple thousand kids a year were missing school days because they didn't have their physicals. So we said, hey, we've got a big building and a bunch of nurses and doctors and connections. So we started what's called the Jumpstart Back to School Clinic. We have, I think I looked, provided 2,800 free back-to-school physicals, along with dental exams, eye exams, vaccinations, all that kind of stuff. And so we started doing that. We started an arts academy so that students from within our church and within the community could begin to learn and develop their love for the arts, all under, all for the glory of God. We got an invitation to provide chaplaincy at a local hospital, so Decatur Memorial Hospital, and so we did that. And then because of our partnership through the Back to School Clinic, Crossing Healthcare, which is a government health clinic here, a community health clinic here in town, they invited us to come over. Actually, we're joined by one of our chaplains, Don Dotson, who's here, so you can ask him about all of this later on. And so it's just, and there's more. I mean, there's more stuff. We're not even going to talk about all that. But what I want you to hear is we're not here to say, hey, this is FCC's greatest hits of community involvement. What I want you to hear is that it wasn't all at once, that it was one step at a time. You're seeing the results of us wanting to get outside the four walls of our building 18 years later. You're seeing 18 years into it. When we started Club 305, it was only like 8 kids. When we started in the block, we started just knocking on doors and, getting to know people. And so everything has a starting point, and so everything has grown over time. Because I don't want you to walk away going, man, we have to go back and start an after-school program for 46 kids. Because right off the bat, that's probably going to be difficult. If it is possible and God comes behind you, that's great. But we want to help you realize that it begins with asking the right questions. There's a progression of awareness and commitment, okay? Thanks. I forgot to click it last time because I got preaching. So, okay. Anyway, so there's a progression of awareness and commitment. So it all begins with observation. We read in John chapter 4 where Jesus is with his disciples. He has just talked to the woman at the well. So she's headed back into town, back into Sychar to tell everybody, hey, I think I met the Messiah, come and see him. And so she's coming back out of town with all of these townspeople, and Jesus is standing there with his disciples. They're like, hey, Jesus, we're hungry. Do you have any food anywhere? And he's like, guys, stop thinking with your stomachs. There's more important things happening right here. And then he says, open up your eyes and look around. The fields are ready for harvest. They are ripe for harvest. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like 3 more months before the harvest. He's like, no, look. And he's pointing to the people coming out of Sychar. He says, open up your eyes. Or actually, a kind of a better translation is, get your head up. Stop looking at your belly button. Get your head up and see the needs. See the opportunities that are right around you. And so for us, that was transformational. Way back in 2004, we had to get our eyes off of ourselves and out of our building and out of just trying to keep the lights on and maintenance and let's see how many people we can get to come here. We had to get our eyes, our focus off of ourselves and look out. We had to observe. And so it starts with observation. Open up your eyes, get your head up and see what is around you. And then after observation comes awareness. Once you see, then you become aware. Oh, man, this is happening in the community. Hey, this is a need. And so from awareness comes conviction, okay? We went to Parsons, we observed the needs, we became aware of them, and then the conviction was, man, something needs to be done for these kids. And what we've learned is that oftentimes when we're convicted about something, when we're like, man, God, somebody needs to do something, God's being like, that's what you guys are for, So it's like, oh, that's us, okay? And so from observation comes awareness, then conviction. With conviction is accountability. Once your heart starts to beat fast and you're thinking, man, we need to do something, and you're like, let's go, let's do something, you have accountability. Out of this conviction comes accountability. We need to do something. I can't sleep at night if we are not doing something in this community. Out of that accountability comes vision. Man, something needs to be done in this community. We can do it. What are we going to do? And so vision, that's a big piece. That's a big step is when you have that vision. Because out of vision then, once people get on board, people get excited, people start to donate, then you have commitment. People are committed. And then out of commitment comes action. That's when you're scheduling the after-school program. That's when you're putting it on the calendar. You have that commitment and you're going to do it. And so the key is the progression. It starts with observation, then to awareness, conviction, accountability, vision, commitment, action. And so don't leave from here saying, man, we need to do action. No, you need to observe first, okay? And so kind of this whole kind of process here is what you could call a vision from burden, okay? You are aware of what's happening and you develop this burden. God gives you a burden and then this vision is birthed out of that. But I need to warn you this, that it will change you. It will change you. We have a saying around here that once your eyes have been opened to the needs of others, especially the needs of people in poverty, you will never be able to close them again. Once your eyes have been opened to the needs of others, you can't go back. You cannot go back to being unaware. And so out of this, we have what you could call kind of a theology, a foundation for all this. And theology is this, is that we are created and called to serve. Serving in our local communities unlocks our God-given potential to do more than we could do on our own. God didn't create us to gather in buildings, in rows, and sing a song, hear a message from the Bible for 1 hour, and then go home. God didn't create us for that. And so serving unlocks that God-given potential to do more than we could on our own. And also, it unlocks it, it activates our passion for the kingdom expansion, because we begin to see, man, we can see how God's kingdom could grow in this place, or we can see how God is doing this. And so we find our place in God's bigger mission by identifying and pursuing our unique mission as churches. And so basically, serving is one of the most effective ways to grow your church, to grow the depth of your church, the commitment of the people at your church, but also to grow even, I would say, the size of your church. And I know all this might seem backwards. It might seem backwards. It's like, okay, how does giving away resources and volunteer hours outside of our church building influence what happens inside the church building? Like, we're trying to find people to volunteer in the nursery. Why in the world would we wave the flag for people to do an after-school program or help down the park? Because we're just trying to cover our bases here. We're just trying to keep the lights on here. Why in the world would we give money outside of our building? Well, it's the concept of the kingdom of God. The concept of gaining by giving. In Jesus' upside-down kingdom, where the first are last and the last are first, and the meek inherit the earth, we receive by sending, and we are blessed by blessing others. In 2004, FCC was a fraction of what we are right now in size. Our budget was a fraction of what it is right now. By giving, by sending, by saying we're going to get as many people and as many resources outside the walls of our building as we can, people started coming here and people started giving all the more. I think almost every year our after-school program has brought in more money than we've spent because people want to get on board with it. And it's not like we're manipulating it and it's, we're like using the after-school program to make, that's not it. But people, they get on board and they're passionate. And so we are blessed by blessing others. We seek first God's kingdom and His righteousness for the communities around us, and then all these things are added unto us as churches.
So what does engaging in your community look like? What do you do? Where do you start? It all starts with gospel motivation. Your work in your community should always point to the gospel, the good news of God's love for us. Not everything is gospel proclamation. Not everything is preaching, walking people down the Romans road, reciting John 3:16. But everything should be motivated by the gospel. We do this because God loves us. There is good for goodness sake, but your church should do good for God's sake. Programs are not the end goal. We talked about a lot of good programs today. Jumpstart, Club 305, Community Table. Those are not the end goal. Programs are platforms for ministry relationships. I'll say that one more time. Programs are platforms for ministry relationships. And that's my story. I'm not here because of a bus ministry, because the bus picked me up, but I'm here because of the people that I met through the bus program. I'm here because on Saturdays, Marcus Perry would come by my house and knock on my door in the hood or the block. And he would ask me how my day's going. He would ask me if I'm hungry. And as you can tell, I've never said no to that question. So yes, I was hungry, Marcus. Thank you for asking. So he would take me to wherever I wanted to go. We'd go to Dairy Queen. We'd go to McDonald's. He just invested in me in that way. Asked how I was doing. And, once again, talking about the needs. Asking if there was any needs in my family. Asking if my siblings needed anything. I'm also here because on Sundays, the same Perry family picked me up for church and brought me on a bus out to a church that I had no ride to. And I'm also here because the Bradshaw family kept me after church and asked if I wanted to come over for a meal. And of course, you all know the answer to that, which is yes, of course, I would love to. And, watching sports and just hanging out and talking and investing. So I'm not here because of the actual program or the physical bus. I'm here because of the families that invested in me.
And so let's get strategic. We start with gospel motivation, but then the next crucial step is to determine exactly what your church can do. And so once again, don't walk away from this workshop saying, we need to do Club 305. We need to do Jumpstart. If you decide that you want to do a program similar to what we've done, we will freely share all of our resources and handouts and papers and everything. If you say, man, we want to invest in a neighborhood, call me, okay? I would love to resource you to the best of my ability to help you do that. But the key is determining what can your church do and what does your community need, okay? And I will say this disclaimer. There is something that your church can do. No church is left out. Community engagement is not extra credit. Community engagement is not, well, you know, if we make our budget this year, then maybe next year we get, no. Community engagement is something that, as I said before, we are created for. God created us for this. If we're not engaging the community around us, then we're not fully embodying what it means to be the body of Christ as a church. And so, what do? Well, you have to take a good look at your church and your community and find the intersection of your church's resources, passion, and needs. And Marlon was really impressed that I was able to make this slide. I just have to say that. So, okay, all right, yeah. Okay, thanks, Crystal. Yeah, she's the one that I really, need to. Okay, anyway, so all that to say, it's the intersection of these three things. So, resources, okay? What has God given your church for ministry? God has given you something. You have a building and you have people, okay? Even if you don't have a building, you have people, okay? You have resources for ministry. So what are the resources you have? Is it your building? Is it your property? Maybe it's your location. You're close to a school. You're close to a park. You're close to an assisted living center. Maybe you're way out in the middle of nowhere, but you have a big backyard. Maybe it's your church kitchen. Maybe you have an old rusty bus in the parking lot that's long overdue for replacement, like us, okay? All right? God has given you certain people. God has given you maybe a network to resources or to, maybe you have people in your church that have influence in the community. So you have resources. Your church has resources. No matter how big or small your church is, you have resources. And then secondly, passion. What are your people already interested and excited in? What are your people already excited about? Maybe you have a group of people at your church who are teachers, and man, they have a passion for education. Or maybe you have some guys in your church that, man, they love softball, okay? Or maybe, maybe it's global missions, or maybe it's cooking, or just there's all kinds of things. What are the people of your church passionate about? What are you passionate about? Because when you determine what you're going to do in your community, you don't want it to be a drag. You don't want to be like, I hate doing this every week. No, somebody in your church needs to be excited about it. Somebody needs to be that spark that other people can rally around, okay? All right, and then finally, what are the needs or the opportunities in your community? What do the people in your community need? I don't think anybody lives in a community where there are no needs. In fact, from my perspective, the needs have only gone up during my 20 years of ministry. And so, ask. If you don't know what the needs are, ask. Ask the school. Ask the principal. Visit the Rotary Club. Ask the mayor. Ask the people who live right around your church building, what does our community need? When we started ministry in the block, we didn't go in and say, we want to do this and this and this and this and this. We went in and we said, hey, what can we do to help? And a mom said, man, I don't have any money for my kids' birthday party. We're like, okay. So the next week we had a birthday party for every kid who was born in June. Big birthday party. If your birthday's in June, come on out. And so guess what? July's like, we're next. And so the next month we had to do it. And so, and so it's just, what are the needs? Ask people and then find ways. And so the key then is the intersection of these three. Okay, I have a leash here, so I can't go over and point at the screen. But you can see the shaded section there in the middle. It's where your resources, your passion, and the needs of your community intersect. If there's not an intersection, it's not going to work. If you have passion and there's needs, but you don't have the resources, you're going to run dry. You won't be able to do what you would like to do. If you have resources and a need, but no one's passionate, you're going to burn out in no time. Or if you have the resources and a passion for something that is not meeting any needs in your community, you're going to just have like a niche sewing group or something, okay? So you have to, that was funny. I'll have to use that the next one too, okay? All right. Where's that pen at? Okay, anyway, so you have to find the intersection of all three. You have to find the intersection of all three. So I'm going to give you a couple examples, okay? These are real life churches, okay? A church in Iowa, okay? So this church had a big fellowship hall. They built onto their church building so they could host fellowship dinners, and that's great for one Sunday afternoon a month. But then the rest of the time, they just had this big fellowship hall. They're like, we all have this space. All we have to do is vacuum it all the time. But what are we going to do with it, okay? All right, they had a fellowship hall. They also had a number of retired people who were available in the afternoons, okay, in the afternoons. So those are their resources. Then they had a passion for their local elementary school. They wanted to pray for their local elementary school. They're always trying to find ways to get engaged, involved at the local elementary school. They had a couple of retired teachers that had been at the school, and so they're like, man, what do we do? We're so passionate about this. Well, then the school district announced that they were going to start a new system where every week on Wednesday, they were going to have an early dismissal. So normally they would dismiss at 3:30. Instead, they were going to dismiss at 1:15. Now, as the parent of 4, sometimes 5 elementary students, my mind goes to, what? You're going to let my kids out early once a week? And so there's all these working parents. What are they going to do? They build their work schedule around picking kids up at 3:30 or 4. So what are they going to do on Wednesdays? So the intersection was this. This small church in Iowa started what they call Wednesday afternoon extra recess. And because all kids love recess, right? It's actually better than recess because they have snacks too. Okay, so recess plus snacks. And so the kids come over from the school. They even got the school district to bring the kids over on buses that couldn't go home to somewhere. They couldn't go to grandma's house or whatever. And so the kids would come over, and from 1:30 to 3:30, the kids ran and played. They had a snack. They heard a Bible lesson. They did crafts. And you need to know that this church of 150 people were hosting between 100 and 150 kids every Wednesday in their fellowship hall. Do you think they stayed a church of 150 for long? No, they're a church of 250 now. The kids loved it. The parents really loved it. And it wasn't hard for them. They're like, hey, yeah, let's pack a bunch of kids in this room. We'll play some games, feed them some Captain Crunch or whatever's back in the church kitchen. And it was success instantly, okay? It wasn't difficult. It made sense, okay? Let's think about another church, a church in Georgia. So this is a small church. They had a small building, but it was close to a local park, okay? It was close to a park. And the church also had a big kitchen. Somebody somewhere left like a memorial gift or something, so it was just gigantic kitchen for a little, with really nice appliances and stuff for a little church, okay? So apparently, there were also, so those were the resources. The passion was that they had ladies who loved to cook. Listen to this. They loved to cook, but they had no opportunities to cook. Which Marlon and I are like, we're right here. And then the need was this. They had a pretty big, because of where they were in Georgia, they had a pretty big homeless population that would gather in the park that was close to their church building. You guys connecting the dots with us here? Sunday evening meal. It was the Sunday night meal. And so every Sunday, this church, these ladies would do what they love to do anyway. They'd roll up their sleeves, make a ton of food. Let's take it over to the park. At first, they wanted to invite the homeless people to their building, but the people were like, I don't really want to go to a church building. Like, okay, we'll bring the food to you. So they pack the food up, take it over to the park, and the homeless people loved it. And, they weren't there preaching at him. They're just building relationships. Naturally, some of the homeless people started attending the church there. But this was another kind of unforeseen fruit from this endeavor. And it was this, that the ladies came alive. And so pretty soon they needed help because they're making so much food that they needed help. And so a couple of the ladies asked their granddaughters who were like in junior high and high school to start helping. These teenage girls loved it. They're like, this is awesome. Can we help every week? Yes. Can we bring our friends? Yes. So pretty soon, it wasn't just these church kitchen ladies serving. It was all of these young women. Now, I don't know about your church, but I've never been to a church where they said, man, we just hate the fact that we have all of these young teenagers involved in our ministry. The church kitchen team was bigger than the youth group. Yeah. Because of the intersection of resources, passion, and needs. And so in both of these cases, it just made sense. It made sense. It wasn't a difficult sell. It was almost like everybody's thinking, and then all of a sudden the light bulb comes on. They're like, we can do this, and this would be great. And people come alive. People get so excited because it's built on their passions, and they get to see needs being met. And so the intersection of your church's resources, passions, and the needs of your community will bring your church to life. As I said before, it's a catalyst. And so think for a moment. Let's not just think kind of hypothetically about Georgia or Iowa. Think about your church. Think about your community. What resources does your church have? Because God is giving your church resources. What are the people of your church passionate about? And then what are needs in your community? And if you don't know the needs, ask. Ask.
The Holy Spirit, I'm sure, did it, but check the people in your church who have ADHD. Because
That's us, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm saying. You and the lady we just said, that's God's gift to getting a whole lot of stuff done and motivating everybody else to do what we're unmotivated to do, because I got ADHD too. So
Absolutely.
that would be a good thing.
Go ahead.
Okay. A good clarifying question to ask is, what can our church do in our community that otherwise wouldn't be done? I'll say that one more time. What can our church do in our community that otherwise wouldn't be done? If we don't do this, it's not going to happen. Every church is unique, as we just said. Every church has a unique amount of resources and unique passions. And every community is unique. Every community has unique needs. And take the time, the very important time, the very necessary time, to assess your situation, to discern your unique mission. And don't think you need to do exactly what FCC does or what other churches have done. Don't hear after school program, jumpstart, and write that down. We need to do exactly that. We'll take that back. I want to talk for a minute. There's a big difference. We've talked a lot about transformational, real life change ministry. There's a big difference between transformational ministry and transactional ministry. So this is a little bit of what not to do. So I can remember as a kid, probably just 8 years old before I ever came to church. So you can picture me, same curly hair, probably a snotty nose, maybe some Kool-Aid or hot Cheetos smeared across my face, running around the neighborhood. And oftentimes we would have organizations or churches come through. I won't name drop any. But they would come through and they would hand out in the fall, maybe hand out backpacks. And they would hand us the backpack and say, here's your backpack. And we would run off and say, all right, thank you. They'd be like, no, wait, let's get a picture. So we'd turn around okay, thanks. And oftentimes what would happen is we would never see those people again. They didn't know our names. We didn't know who they were. It was very much a transaction. And so that happened oftentimes. Sometimes at Christmas, they would bring by gifts, and we would never see those people again. So there's a big difference between transformational, which we've talked a lot about, and that transactional type of ministry.
Yeah, and so a natural result of not having transactional ministry, but having transformational ministry that's based on relationships and making disciples, is that when you don't have that divide, when you don't create that divide from the beginning, people will start attending your church. Now, it might take a while. It might be slow. But people will eventually begin attending. So I remember when FCC first started reaching out to Parsons, I remember being here and someone was making an announcement about a Christmas project we were going to do. We're going to pack a bunch of boxes and take them over to Parsons. And the person who's doing the announcements was like, man, we want to do this for those people over at Parsons. And, us as FCC, we want to be a blessing to them. And I was like, hey, us is them, or them is us. They're here. So it's not us as the church reaching them, because families from Parsons started attending our church. I mean, there were families in the pews that their kids were going to receive a Christmas box that year. And so while it brings some challenges in terms of communication, we have to expect that when we pray for transformation and we pray for God to bring people to faith, that God's going to transform people and that they are going to come to faith. And so let me say that again. It's kind of a mind-bending thing that them is us, or them becomes us. And so let's transition a little bit now. Let's talk about some of the components of the strategy, some of the kind of the strategic planning. So first of all, it's important to be specific. when you are defining where the resources and the passion and the needs are intersect, it's very important to say this is our very specific goal. We don't kind of want to do this, or we might do this. It's we are going to do this on this day at this time, because people need to be able to get on board with it. Clearly defining the burden and clearly setting those goals goes a long way, because it allows people to sign on. It allows people to buy into the vision and get excited. So share the burden, share the vision often. We have a saying that vision leaks, and so it's like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. So you just have to keep pouring that vision in, because people will, they'll forget it, okay? All right, and so secondly, there will be a sense of excitement as your church identifies how it can uniquely engage your community. People are going to get on board. They're going to be excited. You know, the first week of our ministry in the block, we had a bunch of people who drove down, and I had to load the bus up with people to go down. Like, people are excited, yeah, we're going to do something in the neighborhood, you know. And so people are really, really excited. People are donating, they're giving, they're praying. You could say that at the beginning, there will be a lot of hype. But it can be challenging to maintain momentum through the hype. And so this is a book called The Dip. It's by Seth Godin. And he talks about how with any organization or really any initiative, there's a lot of excitement at the beginning because there's novelty and we're doing this for the first time. And, you know, especially if you're meeting a visible need, people are going to get excited. But over time, the novelty of the experience fades away, and what was exciting becomes routine and normal. And so we were blessed during the last workshop here to have Miss Sandra with us. So Miss Sandra, she makes the snack for Club 305, for our after-school program. And snack is not the right word. It's more of a meal. Yeah, and Marlon and I eat the meal as well. So here's the thing. When Club 305 first started in 2006, there were a lot of people who were excited to help make the snack. But now Sandra, week in and week out, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, bless her heart, thank you, Lord Jesus, for Miss Sandra, she makes that snack. And there are some Tuesdays and Thursdays where she is in there by herself making that snack. But she's pushed through. And so we have to have the commitment to push through. The dip is often characterized by struggles recruiting people. You know, at first, man, it's so exciting, we're going to do this. But year 5 or 6, we're like, I did that last year, so I don't really need to volunteer this time. And so there can be struggles developing leaders, securing and managing the resources, maintaining high morale. But if you can push through, I wish I had my little laser pointer, if you can push through the dip with commitment and keep that vision out in front, the end result will actually be greater than when you first started, because you've learned those lessons along the way. Okay? And so one of the best ways to maintain momentum is, and to keep the vision in front, is through lead metrics. Okay? So I'll talk real quick about metrics. So a metric is how you measure something is successful or it's effective. And so there's two kinds of metrics. One is called a lag metric, and one is a lead metric. A lag metric is looking back. It's like, look in the rearview mirror. Oh, we were just there. So an example would be, last year we averaged 112 people in worship attendance. Or in 2021 we had 8 baptisms. That's already in the books. That's written down, and that's in the past. That's a lag metric. If we only measure success based on what's in the books in the past, we'll just keep looking in the past. We have to look to the future. So use what's called a lead metric. All right, so lag is behind, lead is in front. It leads you. Lead metrics are goals of what you will accomplish in the future. So an example would be, we will have 4 community dinners in the fall of 2022, or we will do 2 backpack events next summer. And so lead metrics give you a target of outcomes that are within your control. You can't control how many people are going to come to the backpack event, but you can control whether or not you put it on the calendar and you follow through and you do it. Because obedience is success. I remember we decided that we were committing to having a Bible study in the block in 2016. And let me tell you how many people came to that Bible study the first 3 months. 0. So I'd walk out on Wednesday, put the sign out, and then stand by the door. And so this is what we started doing. We're like, well, nobody's going to come, so we're going to pray. We're going to pray. Fast forward to 2019, our community table was filled, and it's a big table, and we had a second row around that, and then we had people standing in the kitchen, and then we had to open up the door to the living room so that people could sit on the couch. I mean, we were hopping because we had the goal, we're going to start community table. We're going to start it. We started it. Check. Success. That was a lead metric. If we had only been basing our ministry effectiveness on lag metrics, we would have said, no, that doesn't work. So lead metrics are key. Set your goal for what you're going to do in the future. They give you a target. They are proactive goals that create accountability for what you will do. And then success is based on the action rather than the results.
We have one more important point to share about engaging your community, but we wanted to open it up and take some time for questions if you guys have any.
On that one example that you just gave, I'm wondering how how you do this, where you have a goal, but there's not an apparent need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to mesh your needs with your passion, with your resources, and nobody needed, but they did. We know that, but it wasn't very observable that they needed it. Like, how do you kind of balance all of that, or not balance it, but put it all together in a way that, gives you the ministry direction that you're feeling God is leading you?
Yeah. You want to take that? You want me to take it? All right. Sounds good. So in that particular case, people said that they wanted to go to Bible study. So we were like, that's a need, and we have the resources, we have the passion for it, so what are we missing? And what we realized was people were scared to come inside of our house. That front door to our house was a barrier. And so it wasn't until my better half, Mary, said, maybe we just need to take the Bible study outside. And so that's what we did. We started what's called Open Yard. Yeah, you may not even know this, but yeah, Open Yard came out of the understanding. We opened our eyes and we saw, man, people are scared to come into our house. And so we started hanging out outside and playing basketball and making popcorn and talking with people and building relationships. And then pretty soon, this was the precursor to Community Table, the Bible study. People pretty soon said, man, this is great. Would it be possible for us to have like a Bible study or something? We're like, yes, it would be possible. And so in some cases, the need is there, but our ability to meet the need hasn't yet caught up with it. And so that's where the lead metrics come in, is it's like, okay, we know that this is a need, and we know that we have the resources and the passion to do it, but we have to figure out on our side how best to meet that need. So that wasn't on the community, that was on us for not developing the relationships yet. We didn't have, you could say, have relationships in the neighborhood yet as a resource. Other questions? That was a really good one. Yeah.
BJ, I know that the ultimate goal is not to have people from the block to walk in the doors of this building, but have you seen that ministry make people more comfortable coming here yet, or how's that?
Yeah, so good question. So I'm going to let all of you in on a secret, as well as those of you who are watching. Some of the people who we have discipled have ended up going to other churches. Yeah, I know. The last group did that too. One guy fell out of his chair. So, and you know what? Honestly, for us, we're okay with that. Because we're all pitching for the same coach. It's God's kingdom. It's not an FCC kingdom. And so if people can walk to a church on a Sunday morning that's within walking distance of where they live, or, we're going to be completely honest, if people can go to a church where the people at the church look more like them, instead of coming to a majority upper middle class white suburban church like FCC, if people can go to a place where accessibility is easier, the ministries fit the time frame better, then we are all for it. Now, people have started coming to our church, but people have what I would say is probably the biggest impact of our ministry in the community is it has changed us. It has changed us as a congregation. Yeah.
Really, they're not going to another church.
Nope. They're going to another building. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Okay. One last question. Yeah, Don.
Are you going to get that bus fixed?
Are we going to get the bus fixed? We're working on it. We're working on it.
The reason why I say because because I'm also like one of those children, to where that there was a church here in Decatur, Summit Avenue Baptist Church. They used to come all the way across town and pick myself and my brothers and sisters up. And that's where I got my foundation, my spiritual foundation. So that bus.
The bus. It's a resource. It might not be a pretty resource, but it's a resource. Yeah. So, all right, well, let's do this. We cannot stress enough the power of prayer in all of this. The power of prayer in discerning our resources, our passion, our needs. You could almost say that, yes, there's the technical intersection of these three things, but prayer is the circle all the way around it. Prayer is the circle. Every major development in our community missions, or in our engagement, has come out of a season of prayer. Every single one. We prayed, and then we started Club 305. We prayed for years, and then God led us to the block. We prayed and asked God, please provide a house so that we can do ministry in the block as residents. And I got ahead of the prayer, and I wanted to find a house. And finally I gave up, and then God gave us a house. Okay, so you pray, and then God provides. And so, a great little book that I would encourage you to read is a book called Extreme Prayer. It's written by Greg Pruitt. He's the president of Pioneer Bible Translators, which is represented here. And in this book, he talks about how PBT began to identify big, very specific dreams that they had, visions that they had, and then they began to pray for them. So I'd encourage you to read the book. It's really a quick, good read, and it's all about developing that burden, casting a specific vision, and then asking God to do big things. So, but with this in mind, what we want you to do is I realize that you're here, hopefully, with other people from your church. So we're going to give you an opportunity now. Circle up with the other people from your church and begin praying. God, what would you have us do in our community? Please reveal to us how you have gifted us, what our passion is, and then how we can engage the needs in our community. So you're going to circle up together as a group. If you're not here with somebody else, find somebody else to pray with, and we'll give you like 2 or 3 minutes to pray, and then Marlon's going to close in prayer for us, okay? All right, so find some people and pray.